Well, let's discuss this further now with Stephen Okun, who's the CEO of APAC Advisors. That's a public affairs consultancy. He's also a former deputy general counsel in the U.S. State Department, in the U.S. Department of Transportation, and is joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much, Stephen, for being with us. So, your thoughts about this move by the Biden administration? What are the merits of this increase for the U.S. short and long term? Will the economic effect live up to the hype, you think?
But you've got to look at this in the context of a decade, really, of a trade war. And you have to go back to what China started doing in 2015 with its Made in China 2025 plan, what they did 4 years ago when they announced their dual circulation strategy, where they were going to have a state-led economy and industry that was going to look to dominate the key sectors of the 21st century, which include electric vehicles, include renewables. This is a reaction of the U.S. government to that. The Trump administration did an initial reaction to it. The Biden administration affirmed what Trump has been doing, or what Trump had done, and it's upped it on sectors like electric vehicles, on renewables. So this is part of a decades-long trade war, and it's only going to get more intensified as time goes on by both sides.
But tariffs typically make more political sense than economic sense, don't they?
I mean, that every country has tariffs, and every country uses tariffs in part for political sense and in part for economic sense. There's nothing that gets done in a presidential election year by any administration that doesn't get looked at through a campaign lens. And so you will certainly make the argument that this continuation and upping of what Donald Trump did is good sense for the Biden campaign, because it neutralizes one question, which is who is tougher against China. Look, Americans disagree on basically everything when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, save few issues, and one of those is China. And so, yes, this does make political sense, but it also makes sense in regard to what China has done with its industries as well.
Yeah. You talked about, Stephen, Biden upping what Donald Trump did. He said, President Biden, that his approach to tariffs is more directed than his predecessors, Trump. What do you see as the direct impact being on China today?
Well, it probably isn't going to have a lot of impact on China, because we're talking about, 4%. These tariffs affect 4% of the total imports. And right now, China is not importing any electric vehicles into the United States. So the question isn't, I don't think, the economic impact in China of these tariffs. The other questions will be, will other countries join the United States? Because China is exporting a lot of electric vehicles to Europe. Will the EU follow the U.S. lead? That is something that certainly China is going to be very nervous about. And China is not going to sit by and do nothing. So they're going to take action against the United States.
Right.
And then let's see what happens to the Chinese economy and the U.S. economy over that.
Do you expect a significant China retaliation? How might they hit back, you think?
Well, they're going to hit back, and they've said they're going to hit back. The question is, do they hit back with tariffs of their own? Really, the U.S. Sector most susceptible to Chinese tariffs would be agriculture. So I think you can expect a strong consideration of Chinese tariffs on agriculture. But then there are non-tariff barriers that China has used in the past and will likely use again. It could slow down regulatory approvals of U.S. companies. You could see Chinese boycotts of U.S. companies that have resulted in retaliation for these tariffs. And most worryingly, I think, to everybody, is you could see a stopping of the cooperation on other areas where we need to see U.S. and China cooperate, such as on climate change. And so there's a lot of retaliation that can come outside of a tit for tat on tariffs from China.
Stephen Okun, thank you very much for talking to us about this. Good to get your insight. Thank you.